Adults appear to be exploiting and indoctrinating children on an industrial scale. The more you look, the more you see radical hard-left ideology being force-fed to children. And the more you see children being used as a human shield for adults with extreme views. Here's a clip that would be right at home in North Korea. A group of very young primary school children singing a song in front of a giant puppet, symbolising a refugee. So they'd all learnt the song and a little dance routine there as well. Obviously, we've blurred out the children for their own protection. Here's a clip of some more incredibly young kids being used to push the refugees' welcome message.
You are welcome here! You are welcome here!
This is all part of a wider programme that has seen more than 400 schools and nurseries becoming so-called schools of sanctuary. This is driven by teachers, school staff, parents, governors and community groups, so adults. Now, the Welsh Refugee Council has gone into schools and asked kids to do the following. Students made welcome to Wales adverts, making it loud and clear sanctuary seekers are welcome in Wales, as well as signposting refugees and asylum seekers to the services we provide. And here are the results.
The Welsh Refugee Council helps refugees with getting a bank account, universal credit, child benefits, pension credit, employment and education advice.
The best things are the Welsh Refugee Council.
You can get help from the Welsh Refugee Council by having English lessons and getting £40 per week.
And you have the opportunity to get a visa.
Oh, great. Well, we approached the Welsh Refugee Council for comment, but they have so far failed to get back to us. At the time of their visit to that school, the head of communication and engagement said, "We were very impressed by the students and their fantastic questions. We would encourage schools who would like to organise other refugee days to get in touch." Well, the Refugee Council is in part funded by the Welsh Government. That, of course, is a Labour government. Now, in my view, people who say this is just a lovely thing to teach children to be kind or deliberately misinterpreting what's actually happening here. A left-wing government is funding a charity that goes into schools, pushes quite a radical ideology onto children who are then given praise and validation for acting that ideology out. And I think that is quite sinister. But it's not the only example. Climate change is big in the child indoctrination game. In 2018, Greta Thunberg became the face of the School Strike for Climate movement when she was just 15. The following year, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Youth strikes that looked a bit like this. So, the climate movement is underpinned by children and young people denigrating adults. Adults are stealing their future. Adults are evil. Adults are to blame, and children know best. We've seen bodies like the Council of Europe put forward resolutions that make inaction on climate change a violation of children's rights, as defined by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Now, again, we have political bodies using children to push a contested ideological view onto the population. And, of course, in recent weeks, we've seen a school strike for Palestine. Thousands of children around the country were taken out of school by parents or teachers and paraded around the streets, wading in on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Do you trust that they were all being taught that a ceasefire is the best option? Or were they present during chants of Israel being a terror state and Palestine needing to be free from the river to the sea? I suspect it's the latter. I also suspect that schools took no action against parents who removed their children. We have primary schools engaging in Pride Month as well. Kids who look about as young as 4 or 5 years old are being draped in the rainbow flag and having pride picnics. This is encouraged by LGBT activist groups, some of which are like Stonewall, for example, but also by our state broadcaster, the BBC. Schools use resources from the BBC website, including Newsround and Bite Size, to emphasise the LGBT agenda. It includes articles like how to be an ally to friends who've changed their pronouns. Now, make no mistake about it, what we have here, in my view, is a concerted, coordinated attempt to indoctrinate an entire generation of children through the use of charities, activist groups, political parties and legacy media outlets into a variety of radical hard-left ideologies. The amount of people who are complicit in this is absolutely shocking. But of course, some of them do it in part out of fear, the fear of being cancelled if they don't do it. The politicisation and adultification of children, in my view, is not far off child abuse, and I think it needs to be stopped. Now, we've reached out to the Welsh Refugee Council for comment. We're yet to hear back from them. As I've already said, they may well refute all of this stuff, but it would be nice to hear from them. Let's get their thoughts on my panel. We've got Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser and former Brexit Party MEP Belinda de Lucy. Carol, I'll start with you. Should children be taught about a variety of things like, for example, the migrant crisis from, I would argue, a very one-dimensional way?
They should be taught about politics, they should be taught about the migrant crisis, they should be taught about everything, but in a balanced way. They should be taught, not indoctrinated. There's a huge difference, because indoctrination, you only hear one side of the story. You hear one thought, one belief, and that's what these kids are getting currently. You know, I watched some of the videos of those Welsh kids. I mean, it shocked me to my core, because a lot of them are reading from scripts. They're reading from stuff in front of them. They don't know actually what they're saying. They don't understand what they're saying. More importantly, they don't understand the problems of uncontrolled mass immigration. Why the hell should they? They're 10 years old at the moment. They don't understand what it does to infrastructure, how much it costs, who paid for it. So to get these kids to trot that stuff out, you were quite right in your intro in saying that film was a bit like something from North Korea. These kids are trotting stuff out that they don't understand. And what they're saying is things like, Wales is a safe country, Wales is a lovely country, Wales is fabulous, come and live with us.
Come and get a visa, get a visa.
Come and get a visa. It is outrage. You know, I hate what is happening to our kids. You know, they're in schools now, kids are being taught that there are 100 genders. You can be a planet or you can be a star. I mean, it's tosh. Gender ideology, you know, the clue is in the word ideology. Okay. These kids are being taught an ideology as fact, and it's not on.
All right, Matthew, does the left have a problem with wanting to indoctrinate kids?
No, I don't think it's particularly a problem for the left. But I mean, I think there were some things in what we've seen today that make me uncomfortable. Yeah. There are other things that are perfectly sensible. I think it's the Welsh example that they did is they took a couple of refugees into the school, one of whom was from Ukraine. I think if you're going to stimulate discussion, as Carol says, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. But I agree with Carol that having the videos where the kids were reading the script, I'm not sure how many 9-year-olds know about visa rules or universal credit in any detail. And so I mean that from what we can see, we don't know if they were scripts, but it does look like they are on the videos. Then that makes me uncomfortable. But I think what we do need to do is make sure politics is discussed in the classroom, but in a way, as Carol says, that's balanced.
Should the Welsh Labour government be funding things like the Welsh Refugee Council to go into schools and to do things
They
like
shouldn't
that?
be funding it. They should certainly have a word with the Welsh Refugee Council about if they are reading it out, kids reading out a script that they don't understand, because that is, in fact, using the kids as a mouthpiece for somebody else's views. Exactly. That's different. You know, look, say those kids hadn't been campaigning on refugees, but some developer had wanted to build on their school playground, you did vox pops with the kids, and the kids went, I went here, I could play here every day, I don't want my playground to be bulldozed. They know about it, it's something they can relate to. Of course, that's right, but not reading scripts written by adults.
Linda, is this indoctrination?
Yes, I think adults targeting children to pursue a political agenda, to pursue some kind of validation, is a total abuse of power. Teachers, in my opinion, who perform political activism in the classroom as opposed to teaching should be sacked. I think there should be an oath, like a Hippocratic oath that doctors do, that teachers perform, saying they will not use their platform as a teacher to brainwash, to use children as tools to further their own ideology. There should be some kind of oath, because the Conservatives don't give any consequences to these schools. We have the horrific, harmful gender ideology planting seeds in our children at school that if they don't fit sexist stereotypes, that they could be born in the wrong body. This leads to massive harm to our children. Critical race theory, the Palestinian conflict. This is stripping our children of critical thinking. We are making them more vulnerable. They won't. This is why I think Nella in the Jungle found it so difficult to be around people with different views, because teachers are abusing their platforms in their classrooms classrooms to indoctrinate children to further their own political
Why on
agenda.
earth does a 4-year-old have a pride flag in their hand, or a 5-year-old? I mean, those people were like nursery age children.
And this is the thing that, you know, when you go on a rally or you're part of a campaign, you know, all of us on this server have controversial views, and we know there are consequences to that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kids don't understand that there are consequences. You know, the BBC actually has a programme which puts out all this transgender nonsense, and they say becoming transgender will make you happy. They don't talk about the drugs that you have to take.
And there's a bigger danger to it.
They don't talk about the ops.
They're teaching children that just on the basis that you're a refugee, you're a good person. And that is so dangerous, because in Germany recently, there was a Yazidi victim who had to bump into her ISIS captor on the street. And when she complained, the Germans said, oh, well, he's a refugee, we can't do anything about it. Not all refugees are good. Not all British people are good. No, but it's a horrific message to send to children. If you are a refugee, you're trustworthy, you're honourable. No, everyone's as susceptible as to being bad or good as anyone else.
One of the quotes on a website that we looked at earlier today was from a child at a school, and it was like, what would you do if you saw a refugee? And it was like, I would invite them to come and stay in my house.
How terrifying.
And when we've got migrant hotels at the moment and people out on the streets, I personally think that's just quite a risky thing to tell kids.
And they've also been
certainly very simplistic.
Final word to Matthew on this.
Yeah, look, I mean, on the question of pride flags, I think there's a difference between saying that, you know, that changing your gender does have consequences, between showing different sorts of families to kids as they're growing up, so it doesn't become as a shock. And they discover that people have two parents of the same sex later in life. So, you know, I remember the dark days of the 80s when it was, you know, those sorts of books were banned, when it was Eric lives with, you know, John and Michael or whatever it was.
But how do we just keep childhood sacred for a minute, and the left keep their paws off childhood for just one moment? We're
going to rattle through. Like I said as well, we've approached a variety of different people there for comment, and we await their response.